Don Santos, Santos Construction Company. I'm a builder of residential and small commercial, as well as doing some development. And I was past president of the Treasure Coast Builders Association. Let me give you a little history, because I think it's important when we talk about, in my mind anyways, the new normal that I think is in the Treasure Coast. In 2005 and 2006, on the Treasure Coast, if you include all 4 counties, our industry, and I'll just use residential because I think that's a big number, we built approximately 11,000 single-family homes. The National Association of Home Builders did a study that said for every house that's built, about 4 jobs are created. About a third of those jobs are actually construction jobs. The other 2/3 are F-150 jobs, legal, restaurants. If you look at what we're going to do this year on the Treasure Coast in 2010, we will build, if we're lucky, we'll build 1,000 single-family homes. So if we took the numbers, and even if somebody wanted to argue about the actual numbers, we're going from 40,000 employees to 4,000. Now that's 36,000 employees that just disappeared. So if you look at your budgets, if you look at your businesses, if I told you next year that your budget was going to be reduced by 90%, you tell me what you'd do. And a lot of people, I'm sure at Scripps, at the economic development groups, the Chamber of Commerce's, they look at, oh my God, my budget's going to drop by 20% or 30%. It's like the end of the world. But when you drop it 90%, it literally is the end of the world. The only people that are left in the construction industry today are people who have been extremely conservative and have worked extremely hard to just survive. Our problem, our biggest problem on the Treasure Coast, and I actually have said this, is that we never wanted, even though it's my industry, we never wanted residential construction to be the economic engine, because I've been through this 4 times since my career started. And it always ends up bad when we have these disasters. And, we had that opportunity to do some economic diversity, and, it just didn't work out, I think, as well as it should. That's beside the point, because we've got to move forward in our lives. And I guess my point is that without some banking financing that is practical and reasonable, you're not going to see the construction industry or the development industry come back for the foreseeable future. Now, I agree that 2011 should be a little bit better than 2010. But if I got an F- in 2010, I'm not so sure I'm going to be bragging about getting an F+. And I think that that's where we're at. I mean, it's truly a new normal. And I'm not sure we're ever, I hate to say we're never going to go back, because every time I say that, then 2 or 3 years later, we seem to be back right doing exactly what we were doing and forgot all about the past. But I don't want to make a long story, but I think that there is a true albatross around the neck of the Treasure Coast economy, and that is that we spent an awful lot of money with residential construction that's just been taken out of the industry. And I personally don't see any kind of substantial amount of money coming back in the next 2 to 3 years. I actually think that there's going to have to be, and I guess Mr. Banker over here will have to tell us, there's going to have to be a different way of financing homes. I don't know what that is. I wish I did, because then I'd be a genius. But I just don't think that the traditional way that we financed homes is going to continue in the future. It's just going to be a different scenario. So I'm optimistic that I'm going to survive next year. I'm pessimistic about the level that we're going to survive at.
My name is Bill Wallace, and we own 11 automobile franchises in the Treasure Coast area, Martin, St. Lucie County. We've been doing it in Florida all of our lives, so have a history like a lot of you. Certainly 2004, 2005, and 2006, and even most of 2007 were great years for us, record years, like most of us enjoyed. 2008 was a disaster, and 2009 was slightly better than a disaster, but I'm happy to report that 2010, we are seeing in our industry a fairly significant bump. Each month this year, for 11 consecutive months, we've had an increase of anywhere from 10 to a high of maybe 25% month over month, year over year, meaning our November of 2010 was 20% better than our November of 2009. So a consistent increase that we're very pleased about. Nowhere near the level of the highs of 04 and 05 and 06, certainly, but a nice steady increase. It's across the line. We're seeing our luxury cars coming back, selling better than they did, and of course the less expensive cars, the Nissans and the Hyundais and the Volkswagens, they are selling very well because they're better positioned in terms of pricing and fuel economy and those kinds of things, and that's very sensitive to every consumer today, consumers that weren't even thinking that way maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But overall, the overall volumes are increasing, and it feels better to us, and we're a little more optimistic than I think than maybe what I've heard. Having said that, there is no question, living and working here, having hundreds of employees, dealing with the customers, dealing with the employees, it's all about the housing. There is no question about it. To get out of this for good, something better has got to happen with the housing thing. We see it every day. People come in, they maybe live in Port St. Lucie, work in West Palm Beach, commute, they have to have a car. Their car has 80,000 miles on it, and it needs tires, and it needs transmission work. They've got to trade their car. They want to trade their car. For most of their life, they've paid their bills, but they're in big trouble on their house. And you either cannot get them financed, or you have to get them financed at a higher rate than they should be paying, or possibly some other means of financing that just are less attractive to them, and it's just not as healthy as it should be. But it is what it is. We can't do much about the financing part of it. It is what it is, and the reason that bankers don't want to finance cars is because of the housing, and that's where it comes back. It's an enormous problem. We're in a very big hole. I wouldn't disagree with that at all, and I really don't have the expertise to know how we get out of it or when we get out of it. But we are seeing, on the positive side, definitely seeing an improvement in our business. I don't think it's just our business. I'd like to tell you we're so smart and we're so good that we're doing great and everybody else isn't. But from what I can tell, most of the people in the retail automobile business on the Treasure Coast are experiencing a nice bump, a nice healthy bump, and a consistent bump. And you might say, well, it's a pent-up demand, and it had to happen. There's some truth to that in our business, but cars are built pretty well today. People could drive them longer. If they forced to, they could drive them longer, and they're choosing to trade them. And I think that's a good sign. So we're encouraged, and overall, we would expect 2011 to be, again, maybe 10 or 12% better than 2010, which will still not get us back to the boom years, but it's 3 years. It would be 3 years worth of increases, and we're getting there. So.
Thanks, Bill. I'm Bill Penny. I'm president of Marine Bank in Vero Beach. We're a small community bank serving primarily Vero Beach and Indian River County. I'm a lifelong South Florida native of West Palm, and I've been in Treasure Coast for 26 years. And Don, I've seen these cycles go through, and you probably remember, as I do, the one in 1928 that was so bad.
I look pretty good for my age.
I mean, the one thing we need to learn is Florida is built on boom and bust real estate cycles. I mean, always has been, and it does point out the need to diversify the jobs. And if that's the one takeaway for everybody, is that we've got to diversify this job base. But in terms of what I see for next year, I talked to a lot of people in my little group up in Vero Beach. I talked to friends in South Florida, and I'm seeing some positive. I'm seeing a lot of optimistic outlook, and that's a big change from, I'm going to say, 6 months ago, when there was a tremendous amount of uncertainty about the political atmosphere, what was going on. Without getting political, I think the election made people feel better that maybe we're moving to a more middle ground. on policies and taxes and that sort of thing. So I've sensed just a very positive outlook in the last month or so. And also, we're a very seasonal community. There's a lot more people in town, and everybody feels better. And we used to hate the traffic. Now we love the traffic. That's God bless them all. Come down here, and you know, there's nothing like a hurricane season without a hurricane and a quick cold front up north to help boost the economy in South Florida. So I'm feeling pretty good. I think we're going to start to see some moderate improvement next year. And we're at a point in the recovery of the recession. We've been down for 3 years now. People want to feel better. I think the people that, we all have jobs, but we're all probably cut back. We're all just a little bit. We're not going out and buying all those new cars and out to eat every night like maybe we would like to. But I think people want to feel better, and they're starting to spend a little bit more. And we're at a point when it's not about the statistics, it's about how you feel. And if you feel better, you spend a little bit more money. We all spend a little bit more money. There's more jobs, there's more car sales, and that creates more jobs. And it spirals up as quick as it spiraled down. So I'm going to go out with an optimistic projection and say I think next year could possibly be a whole lot better than a lot of people think.
I'm Larry Pelton. I'm with the Economic Development Council of St. Lucie County. I guess I don't know how to tell you what's going to happen next year. I think there's so much uncertainty about especially in industries that compel the economy of Florida and as well as our regional economy here. They're greatly impacted by consumption patterns, and what happens to the consumer is going to dictate how well our economy does next year. In the state of Florida, I just did some research on this. 22% of the gross state product is produced by the construction and real estate industry, 14% by wholesale retail industries, 8% by healthcare, 7% by finance and insurance, 7% by professional services like law firms, and 6% is tourism. So those 6 sectors produce 64% of the gross state product of Florida. Every one of them is greatly impacted by cyclical nature of the economy. Just to refresh everyone's memory, from 1986 to 1991, construction and real estate industry fell 40%. From 1995 to 2005, the same industry had a 75% increase, and from 2005 to 2009, a 40% decrease. That's a cycle. I mean, that's a clear expression of what a business cycle is all about. But my point about that is that each of those industries that are so dominant in our state absolutely rely on disposable income. And the real estate industry just relies on demand and interest rates. So there's just now I hope that people at the table will tell me what each of those sectors will do next year, because what I've seen in housing in this area was that a lot of people, I think our housing market is dependent on what happens in the Northeast, because Northeasterners have tended to move to Broward County or Miami-Dade and then said, we got to get out of here. And they've moved up, they've jumped up to Martin County and St. Lucie County. So,
that's right. That's a positive attitude right there.
Yeah,
they moved out. That's right.
So when you have a feeding chain like that, you've got to be able to sell real estate in the Northeast if you're going to buy real estate in the Southeast, South Florida, and then you got to sell it down there if you're going to move up here. So what really impacted us was the fact that when this housing market declined, it stopped that flow of growth up in the Treasure Coast. On the economic development side of it, we're a little bit different. I think what we've seen, we've been dealing with larger companies and larger projects. The big companies have gone through rapid decentralization. They've been spinning off assets as fast as they can to get cash, try to monetize their assets. Now and they had to lay off people, and you're reading that they're sitting, big corporations are sitting on a couple $1 trillion of capital. That's only because, that's not because they had such great years and the demand was so good that they generated that much in profits. They've done it through the liquidation process, and that's really, they're not ready to get back into mergers and acquisitions. They're not ready to get into expansions, and they're also trying to figure out what's going to happen in Washington, what's going to happen internationally as well. The bigger the company, the more impacted they are by economic trends throughout the world. So, and as a result, we're getting now a lot of small companies who want to move from someplace. The unfortunate side of that is they can't get the capital. They can't raise the investment capital. They can't get the debt capital. The regulatory constraints.
Hey, Daniel. How are you?
Sorry, I'm late.
Have a seat.
Where do you want me to sit?
The regulatory constraints on the lending industry are just prohibiting a lot of loans that might have been made 2 years ago or 3 years ago being made today. So that's all. I can analyze it. I can't tell you. I can't forecast it. Is what I'm saying.
Why is it for 15 years I always have to follow you? I've always had to be behind Larry. I'm Michael Corbett with Workforce Solutions and Research Coast. The good thing about my job is I get to work in all 4 counties, and I see small businesses really trying to innovate, to try to be creative and figure out what they can do to grow their businesses. And they are starting to hire people back. We're starting to get more job orders in-house. We're starting to see people invest in these companies. They're not big companies, they're smaller companies. And the other thing that I see, I actually live in Palm Beach County, so I see Miami-Dade doing a little bit better than Broward, Broward doing a little bit better than Palm Beach, and Palm Beach doing a little bit better than this region up here. But I do feel the pulse of people being a little bit more positive about what's going on. I'm seeing people trying to collaborate and partner and bridge alliances with other companies to try to figure out how to create new niches and markets to penetrate. And I'm seeing people try to export outside the area to grow their business cycles as well. So I see a lot of positive things actually happening.
I'm Debbie Duval. I'm here with 2 hats also. I'm co-owner of Waterpoint Realty Group and also representing the Realtor Association of Martin County. So everybody's brought up residential real estate and real estate in general. Like Dawn, or I've got one less. I've been through 3 cycles now in my business career here, but I have lived in the area and moved to the area in 1966. My family moved to Port St. Lucie. So I've seen a wee bit of change here since then. The residential real estate, which I will speak of first, is actually doing better. I'm optimistic, like Bill. Unlike the numbers sometimes and all the negativism and the headlines that you see in the newspaper, our residential numbers are doing much better. Where if you would have asked Bill Pittenger or anybody 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they would have said, Port St. Lucie might take 10 years to recover. You know, today they might say 3 to 5 years. It is much sooner. It is coming back quicker. I know Dawn went through it too, but I personally, in the residential market, am seeing a quicker recovery than what we saw in the 89 to 92 market. Recovery now, folks, does not mean prices are going up. It doesn't necessarily mean we need to get back to the inflation that we saw back in 2004, 5, 6 that was not healthy. and it wasn't sustainable, as we all know. But quicker recovery, the Treasure Coast is doing better statistically than the U.S. I think it will come back sooner. And within our Treasure Coast region, we have markets that statistically are way outperforming the national averages. Some pockets in Martin County, there are some pockets in St. Lucie County also that are outperforming. Just like our MSA numbers, you get numbers based on averages. There are market segments within our communities that are doing exceptionally well. Exceptionally well doesn't mean your prices are going way back up. It means that you have inventory down, you have sales up, and there is demand for the product. There are people buying if we can get appraisals for the loans. There are good banks here that are doing programs that have money available. Banks have money to lend. That's another misnomer out there. They are lending. They're making smarter investments than they were in the past. They're being more conservative maybe. But there is money out there. There are sales being made. 2010, statistically, our sales numbers are up over 2009. I'm very optimistic 2011 will produce the same thing in residential real estate. Moving to the commercial side, commercial has always lagged residential. Residential resales, new construction has always lagged the resale. So as our resale market comes back, then it'll filter down into new construction. Commercial, people like Larry are doing a phenomenal job throughout the state of Florida at getting Florida on the map, attracting businesses that are going to bring jobs into Florida, imports and exports. Those are all positives that are drivers that are going to help our state and our region recover quicker maybe than some other areas.
Deb, don't you think with your position on Enterprise Florida,
I don't have that hat here.
oh, okay.
But I was
With the knowledge of the state as a whole, recognizing that we need to be more diverse in our economy and the state having a focus on being more competitive within the United States has helped in creating some of the pockets like the innovative businesses and the Research Coast and really helping set an overall view. Don't you think the state is seeing?
I think the state is in a much better position at attracting new businesses and is setting up things to help Larry's job a little easier, maybe, than some other states. But as a region and from a residential real estate and a commercial real estate, I'm very optimistic going into the next few years.